G'day, welcome back to the 40 channel. So as you've already seen in the last two episodes, we've been working on the handbrake, full conversion, full upgrade. Now, let's move on to the next step. This is straight after it. We haven't driven it around, but you guys had to wait for this episode to pop up, is brake booster conversion. So we're gonna rip off the old brake booster. We're gonna upgrade the brake booster with a proportional valve, and it's all gonna come together. So let's get straight into that right now. It's all going on the bench here because we haven't cleaned up. We come straight in from the rear brake conversion. We're going straight into the brake booster. Here we have an 80 series brake booster, brand new, and we've had to do a couple little things. So first thing we've done is we've made up this little bracket. This little bracket will mount right here on the front. That'll also hold the proportional valve. We've made a spacer. We've made that straight out of a polynylon block. Now this is a wear resist material. It is tough as, it'll never rust, it'll never wear out. And it's super light. So it's lighter than metal, it's lighter than aluminium. And I think this will be the way to go. So this is pretty cool. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get out there, we're gonna strip all the old gear off. So we've got a little proportional valve here or restriction valve here. This will go straight to our rear set of brakes. This is also that we can even out the braking on the car. It might take a couple little adjustments on this to get it right, but once it's right, it's locked in and never changes again. And we have to make up a little bit of custom lines just so that we can make all this come together. Righto, the longest part of this job will probably be bleeding the brake lines. But for you guys, it'll look like it happens almost straight away, but that's right at the end of this. Let's get started. Right, the first thing we're gonna do is just undo all these brake lines, take them off. Now it is pretty full of brake fluid, so what we're gonna do, just chuck some rags down over everything so it'll drip down on that. We've also got a little bucket here, just to try to capture anything that falls out. Let's undo these first. Righto. Just gonna remove this master cylinder, pull the two brake lines off, little bucket just under there to try to capture anything that sort of drips out. Right, I'll just let that drip away. Now we've got the 4 bolts, that'll remove the whole master cylinder, and then that's separated and we're done with that. Right, this master brake cylinder is actually not that old. It was actually put on just before long drive for a drought, because it was all damaged diaphragm at the back there and it was actually leaking into the brake booster. So all this stuff needed attention anyway. And I didn't get too involved with it because we knew that we were going to do this upgrade. Righto. I'll pull that off carefully so we don't spill that brake fluid everywhere. We'll take that out so we don't knock it. Set that vacuum line over there out of the way. Righto, now we've got 4 bolts inside that we need to undo. A pivot pin from underneath the back of the brake. Spring, we'll pull all that off. It's a little bit hard to film. We'll try to sort of take a photo of a film, we'll point it all out, show it needs to come off. Righto, that should just come straight out, which it does. We'll pull all this up out of the way, readdress all that, make it all neater, clean it all up. Righto, so we just need to trim a fraction out of this here, just to give us a little bit of clearance around this brake booster. Some dampish rags over everything because we're going to use a grinder just to protect everything. Right, with a lot of sharp little burrs and all that stuff in the way, you don't have to take much out. Like literally I only just took out a fraction there just to give a little bit of clearance, not much at all. We've also turned the master cylinder 180, so it's upside down. We've spun it all around. Clean all this up. Righto, so that's all cleaned up. Now we do have a bit of bare metal there. Now, I don't know, one day eventually we might strip all this car down and give it a full overhaul. But as you guys know, this is just a bush ready car, so we're not too concerned with how things look. But what we are concerned with was rust. We don't want rust to come through, because if we do turn this into a bigger project later on, we want to protect it. So I'm going to use some grey oxidizing primer. This stuff is sensational. It really protects it well. Now you could spray it straight on there and we're going to get it everywhere, but we don't want to do that. We want to try to make it look a little bit neat. Could spray this straight into the cap, little paintbrush. That's a fantastic idea. If you've got a little paintbrush going around, you can just brush it on there, or just get a little rag. Spray a generous amount on the rag and almost just dab it on your bare steel. Dries pretty quick, so give it a few little dabs. Be nice and generous with it, and that will protect our bare steel. Righto, so there's our 80 series brake booster all set up. So you can see that we've got our little bracket that we've made up at the bottom. We've got our proportioning valve. We've made up this little bypass hose here that'll come up through the proportioning valve before it gets to the rear brakes. Now the rear of it, if you actually measure the length of this shaft to the old shaft that you've pulled off, it's 20 mil shorter. So obviously you need to do something. That is why we've made up our spacer block. So we'll chuck our spacer block on there. Just like that. We've undone this and turned it upside down. That gives us all the clearance we need to fit on that firewall. Next thing we need to do is remove our little clevis pin off the old one so that we can put it straight onto our new brake booster. Just like that. Okay, we're going to sit it about the same distance that it was on the last one, using that spacer as our guide. That's exactly 110, and that's where we had it before. So we can lock that up. Our rear brake hard line, we need to bend it and spin it up around to the other side to get into that proportional valve. We have to be a little bit careful here. Actually, we'll undo this nut here. That gives us more than enough room. We can use our little bender if we can get it in there, or we can just very carefully manipulate it with our hand. It could be work hardened, so just be really, really careful with the way you go. Worst case scenario, we're going to make up a whole new brake line. Let's hope that we don't have to do that. She feels pretty soft still, which is a very good thing. Let's just see where all of this sits for the moment. Righto, so the new brake booster's in. Fits up quite nicely inside. My other GoPro's gone dead, so I wasn't able to film it, but basically slide it in, do your 4 bolts up. You will need someone on the outside to help you hold it in, so Shelley helped me hold that all together. Now the beauty is all the existing brake lines, a little bit of an manipulation, not too much, which is good, will all fit up to where we need them to go, including into that proportional valve or restriction valve, whatever you want to call it. It's all bolted in from the back, a little bit tricky. As I said, Shelley held it all in place. Now we've got our pivot pin back in on our brake, dropped our spring back in, our little split pin as well. Everything is bolted back up. We've got our restrictor or our proportional valve. I'm just going to open it right up just for the moment to help bleed all the lines, because this part of the project, like I said, will actually be the longest part of the project. So open that right up. Fill it up with some brake fluid, and we'll start the process of bleeding brakes. I'm not going to film this because we've been through this a couple times before, but basically you pump it till it's hard, crack one of the lines. We're going to start at the furthest line away, which is in the rear back, bleed into there, then the next one, and then we'll work through the front. So anyway, I'll get back to you when we get ready for a test drive. Righto, so while I was trying to bleed the brakes solo, I broke my little vacuum bleeder thing. Not that I think these are amazing, but anyway, I think Andy's up in the house. We'll go get her and see if she can give us a hand. Hold it down. Right, good job. Righto, that's it. So we've got the whole brake booster all installed. All the brake lines are all bled. That was a bit of a mission. Andy came down to help me with that. We've got the proportional valve. It's all set up. So we need to take it out for a test drive now and see how it all goes and see how it stops. What better place to do some brake testing than one of the most famous racetracks in all of Australia, with some serious inclines and declines too. Let's hit the racetrack. Righto, so that's it for this video. Thanks so much for your support. If you want to follow along, feel free to subscribe. If you want to keep up, we've got TikTok and Instagram, that type of craziness going on as well in the back of the social media world. But until next time, take care of yourselves.